So you're feeling it too. Your energy's low, it's getting darker, it's cold, it's raining, but we're here. In line with being persistent in unfavorable situations, how can we turn this unfavorable situation into something that can work for us and something that's actually beneficial? Because as I always say, things are happening for us, not to us. So how can we utilize this? Okay, you're in the UK, and within the next 3 months, whether it's because you have certain commitments, you have family issues, your business, your work, you are going to be here. How can you, rather than trying to just make this bearable, how can you actually make this a period of time where you can excel? So I'm going to talk about how you can transmute and transcend your environment and actually use it as fuel. So if you're similar to myself, when it gets to this time of the year, and you can be in certain parts of Europe as well. The days are shorter, the energy's lower, it's grey, it's beginning to get cold. And the problem with that is, it's not that it's just cold, it's raining as well. So there's not actually much you can do outside, and there's not much productive things you can do in general because everything seems to revolve around drinking. Everything revolves around being intoxicated. And as we know, that's illusory. That is an illusion. Being drunk isn't necessarily a real representation of yourself. You're just going to be covering up and using something outside of yourself to internally try and validate when you know there's an incongruency. So, what we're going to look at is how you can actually transfer, transcend, and transmute the negative energy into something of abundance, because this is a period where you can actually grow, where Q1, Q2, you can see the dividends of what you sowed. And it's very simple. Things happen for you, not to you. Rather than feeling like a victim in this period, rather than feeling like, woe is me, the skies are grey, it's cold, what can you actually build in this period of time? Because we understand that nature is a process. And similarly, when you're shaping your life and becoming the person you want to be, that is also a process. So, how can you take elements and actually transmute that energy? Now, if you don't know what transmuting is essentially transferring energy from one thing into something else. In this instance, is that negative energy and it's shifting it into something positive. Now, there are certain things and there's certain ways you can do this. For example, you may be familiar with sexual transmutation. That is where you take the energy and that desire, which is to ultimately create, because that's all it is when you want to have that urge. The urge is to create something and you channel it into something else. So let's say you get that sexual urge and that desire. That's your body signaling that it wants to create. It's signaling that you need to channel your creativity. Now, you've got two options. Well, there's many options, but in some instances, the option is you go and partake in watching adult entertainment and pleasing yourself, or you take that same energy, that vigor and drive, and you channel it into creating something that can actually be useful and resourceful. Exact same feeling, two different approaches. This feeling now, you can be feeling low, you can be feeling relatively drained. How can you take that and transmute into something positive and channel it into something that's actually gonna effectively tap into you? Because if you're watching this video this far, I know how it feels. You don't even necessarily have to be in the UK. This time of the year in general, or winter in general, in most places, it's not favorable. We have to understand it's cyclical. In order for you to appreciate the summer, there has to be balance. If it was consistently summer, you wouldn't appreciate it. Now, if you are in a situation right now where you cannot travel, this is why we need to talk about how you're going to be able to combat this and change your perspective of how you view it, rather than viewing yourself as the victim in a situation, understanding that this is a natural process. If you're in a fortunate position to be able to move, then the best thing would be positioning to get yourself out of here. However, I understand some people have commitments, they have family issues, their family ties, should I say. Um, there's certain things going on where you're gonna have to withstand this period of time. But it's the way you look at it, the way you perceive problems, or the way you perceive, you know, things that come up in your life is gonna actually dictate how you then go on to navigate in that situation. So if you're seeing this as a problem and you're feeling stuck, that feeling of desire with no action is extremely low frequency, and all you're doing is telling your brain that you're unappreciative. Whereas if you tell your brain, or if you start to believe and you start to understand that you're grateful for this process, and you can actually see this as an opportunity for you to grow as a person, to grow your fortitude and grow your mind, then it starts to shift. So why do people take cold showers and cold baths? Because it's something difficult. You're self-inflicting something difficult. So we can naturally understand that, cold showers and ice plunges are good, but you can't understand and accept that a natural part of the year is that there's cyclical processes where sometimes it's going to be winter, sometimes it's going to be summer, and it can actually increase your level of appreciation. But the way you can combat this and make it a situation that works for you is by appreciating it, understanding there's no light without dark. There's no sun without rain. It's the yin and the yang. Those energies need each other. It's a symbiotic relationship. And when you start to realize that you can actually transmute some of this energy, that pent up aggression where you feel like you need to change your situation, that can be channeled into something that's going to give you favorable outcomes. But if you continue to perceive yourself as the victim in the situation and feel like you cannot move or you cannot do anything or you can't even feel better in your initial circumstances, it's going to be hard for you to appreciate things at the next level. So this is a fundamental part of almost your personal development, as you can see it. And when it comes to personal development, it's essentially how you deal with adversity. You know, that desire, I made a video about it, sort of, the concept of desire without action is ingratitude. If you're feeling ungrateful now, but you're not taking action, all you're doing is signaling that you're ungrateful. All you're doing is signaling that you desire, and that's low frequency. Acceptance is accepting where you're at. And part of your personal development is implementing steps every day to change your situation, or at least put yourself in the most advantageous position if you're going to be somewhere. Okay, I'll just share with you what I was sort of journaling down, what prompted me to create this video, and it may articulate a lot clearer, just so you can understand where this message was coming from, and you can take it wholly. Energy transmutation is about taking the heaviness of the winter and turning it into fuel, as I mentioned. The UK winter comes with lower light, lower mood, and less movement. As I mentioned, you can't really go outside. It's getting darker, it's getting colder. It's a very stagnant period of time energetically. And what I always talk about is the importance of energy. You know, energy and clarity is everything. If you know where you're going and you have enough fuel to get there, it's easy. You can think about that analogy in terms of a car. If you don't know where you're going, you have no direction, it's going to be very difficult to get to the destination. If you know where you're going but you don't have any fuel, you're not going to be able to get there. So energy and clarity are really important. And this is why you need to understand how to transmute that low frequency energy into high frequency energy so you can get your desired outcomes quicker, especially if you're in the UK and you're trying to tackle this winter. Okay. Lows can be material for discipline, creativity, and inner work. As I mentioned, how can you channel it? We talked about sort of sexual transmutation. How can you channel that creativity? Because all you want to do is essentially create. Hard seasons sharpen resilience. If you can thrive in conditions that are tough, you'll dominate when conditions are easy. See this as the training ground. If you have the fortitude now to not, succumb to your vices, imagine when, things are nice and the sun's out. This is the training wheels to really transform your life for the better. If you don't fall to the weed and the drinking now, when the sun's out and you can do things, you can go out and it's not raining, it's not cold, it's not dark, and your energy is elevated, you're going to be ahead of 95% of people, because a lot of people now are essentially going to be dormant. Like a bear, they go into hibernation. A lot of humans go into hibernation this time of the year. They begin to get fat. They begin overindulging as a coping mechanism to deal with the low energy because they're unaware of how to transmute that energy and channel it into something positive. However, if you stumbled across this video and you got to this point, you're going to begin to, break those boundaries and just have a, understanding. And even if you're already aware of this, it's just reiterating it. Sometimes you need that guidance or that reassurance to know that what you're thinking is not crazy. Yes, it can be bad, but are you going to be a victim to that, or are you going to take things into your own hands? Okay. Shorter days, they can be used for focus. There's less time in the day. That is almost making certain decisions for you about how you should lay your day out accordingly. Okay? Creating tighter routines while others drag themselves through the dark. So you can implement things where you know your energy is going to be lower. You can implement things that are lower of resistance, but there's still tasks that need to be done. So, for example, if I know there's a window of daylight and I'm going to be more optimal filming in the daytime, I can film in the daytime. But when it comes to scheduling my cut posts or doing, my back end emails, I can do that at the nighttime. All it takes is the direction and the clarity. In order to get that, I've got videos on the meditation and journaling of how you can effectively organize your brain and just be a little bit more present. Once you're present, you're more conscious congruent, and then things are going to come to you easy. The guidance is going to come to you. You have that internal, understanding. I believe in Islam it's called the fitrah, your natural inclination towards things. That is very real. In the spiritual realm, there's things to describe this. In Christianity, there's things to describe this. However you want to go about describing it, if you understand what I'm saying, you comprehend English, you know what I mean, okay? Even frustration, boredom, or sadness can be channeled into training, writing, building, or planning. Season, what season of your life are you in? If you're building and you're training and you want to get your body right, this is perfect because summer's where you want to shine anyway. If you know you're going to have to withstand it, it's about implementing these systems. Life is systems and processes. How can you implement, a strong training regime? How can you start building and planning for your definite escape if you know you have to be here short term for now? Across cultures, winter was always the season of retreat and preparation, the time when crops rested and people stockpiled before the explosion of growth in the spring. You know me, I love my nature analogies because it just makes everything so real. No matter whether you believe about this or believe about this, we can all come to a conclusion objectively about, the things in nature, the things that you can see. You can see the harvest, you can see the sunrise, you can see the sun go down, you can see the moon, you can see, we can see these objectively. It was the time when the crops rested, people stockpiled before explosion of growth. For your character, for your body, for your business, for your relationships, are you building now? Are you stockpiling now for that explosion of growth? It can be the exact same thing. And once you start realize that, we're all tied into this and there's a certain continuity. And that's why I can sort of grasp these points together between nature and how you're going to elevate yourself. You get the clarity. You can begin to see where you're going now and it starts to make sense. Every dip, by dip, that could be a dip in your energy. Every dip is fuel. The lower you feel, the more energy you have to redirect upwards. In this life, you can't get something for nothing. If you're feeling low, how can you channel that energy up? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. I believe it was Sir Isaac Newton's third law of motion. Again, this is objective. Mastering transmutation turns winter into more than survival, and it becomes a season where you can secretly get ahead. How are you going to use this to your advantage? If you made it this far, leave in the comment below what you're going to do for your spring to explode? What are you going to do? What are you going to implement? What are you going to change? Is it your character? Is it your training? Is it your diet? Is it your schedule? What are you going to do to take things to the next level? How are you going to utilize this period of time? How are you going to transmute the negative frequency and the negative energies into abundance, prosperity? You got it, man. Let's go.